Good morning, Shiloh. It's another beautiful fall, wintry day that's going to get up into the upper 60s. And so it's a blessed day. It's a gift from God at this time of year. My focus this year during Advent is to try to know the whole story. And I'm going to read to you from Luke chapter 1, beginning at verse 57. And this is about the birth of John the Baptist. Now you have to understand, this is before Jesus has done anything, because he's not even born yet. And his father, Zechariah, begins to prophesy over him. So let's read this together this morning. Luke 1:57. When it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. On the 8th day, they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father, Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, "No, he is to be called John." They said to her, "There is no one among your relatives who has that name." Then they made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, "His name is John." Immediately his mouth was open and his tongue was loosed, and he began to speak, praising God. The neighbors were all filled with awe. And throughout the hill country of Judea, people were talking about all these things. Everyone who heard this wondered about it, asking, "What then is this child going to be?" For the Lord's hand was with him. His father Zechariah was filled with the Holy Spirit and prophesied, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. As he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham. He rescued us from the hand of our enemies, and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days. And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go on before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people the knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of sins, because of their tender mercy of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven, to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the paths of peace." And the child grew and became strong in spirit, and he lived in the desert until he appeared publicly to Israel. Now, this story is about John the Baptist, and how John and Jesus are so connected to each other. Elizabeth and Mary are relatives, probably an aunt and a niece. And they're connected. And can you imagine Mary up at Elizabeth's house for 3 months, and for 3 months they're talking about what was going on. Elizabeth talking about, "Wow, in my old age, I'm having a child." And Mary said, "Yes, I'm having a child conceived by the Holy Spirit. And we're going to call him Jesus." And all this, that, and the other, and about forgiveness of sins and all of this. And Zechariah is, whatever Zechariah is doing, but he can't talk. He can only listen until he proclaimed that his child was to be named John. That's when he really believed what the angel of the Lord told him back at the temple that day. And all of a sudden his tongue was loose and he began to prophesy. This is what he says about him again. Listen. And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High. For you will go on before the Lord to prepare the way for him, that is Jesus, to give his people the knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of sins because of the tender mercy of our God. Zechariah is prophesying. Salvation is not going to come through sacrifices at the temple anymore. Salvation is going to come through the forgiveness of sins. And that John is to go and prepare the way for Jesus to come after him and share the goodness of God. John is preparing the way for Jesus. As Paul Harvey used to say, and that's the rest of the story.